It is like how during the old times people use different envelopes, keep the rental money, the bill, the grocery and whatnot. Hi, I'm Louise.
And I'm Han. Today we are talking about budgeting, smart savings. Let's break it down, it'll make sense. A bit more personal, what's something that you will willingly splurge on, and what are the biggest items that you save up for? Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Things that I will willing to splurge on is definitely those things that my family would love or would want. So like a vacation with my family.
And what's the biggest thing that you've saved up for?
Definitely is that one vacation that I really saved up for my family when I just started working. Just imagine like almost 1 or 2 months of my salary go into the vacation. Yeah.
So how long did it take for you to save up?
It took me half a year, but with a plan, because I actually made a plan to see how much I make every month and then how much I can afford to set aside every month. So stick to the budget, and eventually it got me to the goal.
We talked a lot about saving, we talked a lot about budgeting, but I think one of the very important things that we've really missed out, what is cash flow, right? What role does it play? In your words, what exactly is cash flow and why is it so important in personal finance?
Cash flow to me in layman terms is simply about money coming in from your allowance or your salary versus the money going out on groceries, your makan and everything else. Of course, it is important because our mission is always to make sure that our money coming in is always more than the money going out. And nailing this is really like unlocking the financial superpower, because it would then put you out of debt. It would actually give us the freedom to own the things that we really want.
Okay, so having more money coming in, more than money going out, means that you are slowly accumulating cash, right?
Yeah.
Over a certain period of time. How is cash flow different from budgeting or saving?
Maybe you would think of it like planning a night out with friends. Budgeting is about you have in your mind like how much I want to spend for the night, like maybe 200 ringgit. But the cash flow is really what happens during the night, because cash flow, it means probably you just want a casual night out, but then your friends decided a more atas place, so end up your share come up to be 250, a negative cash flow of 50 ringgit.
Why do you think that people overlook in terms of tracking their cash flow?
Honestly, I think it's quite a boring vibe kill. Yeah, because having to track your expenses is like having this constantly on your mind to keep track of your expenses, how much have you spent, how much you have left and all.
So it's a tedious job.
Can be, yeah, it can be, depending on how you actually track your expenses.
What are the biggest misconceptions about managing your money day to day?
The misconception, which I sometimes probably still do, is that thinking I can track everything in my head.
That's true.
If you think that you can track everything in your head, honestly, you will only remember the one-off big purchase, but not the daily coffee runs or the bubble tea runs that you have that actually drains your bank account.
That's actually very true. Many people do that, right? So how can someone start tracking their cash flow if they've never done it before? Are there any tools or any other methods that you would recommend to track your cash coming in and out?
How I would usually do in tracking my expenses is to make sure that I have a dedicated place to put my budget for each purposes. For example, groceries or my monthly meal expenses, as well as fund that I set up for my emergency. You can either use GX app, the GX pocket, or if you have multiple banks account, if you prefer that way, just put the money that you budgeted for that purpose in each of the buckets every time when you get your salary. Then you don't really have to track. It can be very effortlessly, because you just have to make sure whenever you spend in that category, you take the money out from the bucket and then use that for the purpose. So of course, if you want to track, how much do I still have for these buckets? You just go into the bank account or the GX pocket and see how much you have left. But of course, you have to always go by the principle that once the bucket is empty, it is empty. You don't keep loading the buckets.
So you're saying that once you've created a budget, you put your money in different accounts and then you draw for that particular purpose.
Yes. Last time I used to do that before we have GX app. I use a few banking accounts. It is like how during the old times people use different envelopes. Keep the rental money, the bill, the grocery and whatnot. But that way is the easiest. At least I don't have to keep writing down in my notebook to say like, oh, I have spent this much today and how much I have left. It's actually very time consuming if you're doing it so manually.
So do you still use a notebook to keep track?
No, not anymore. I don't have to actually transitions from using a notebook to different bank account, and slowly now that we have a GX pockets, right, then I use a GX account.
I use Excel.
Oh, you use Excel?
I know. So like for me, all of the app that helps you track cash flows either needs to pay, which I very good. If you don't want to pay, there's a lot of ads. So I stick to Excel. I've been using Excel for the past 20 years.
For daily expenses, yes, I do use the pockets. But of course, for big purchases that I need to save up, like I cannot afford to buy a car or a house out from my pocket, definitely I will need Excel as well, especially like for retirement fund as well.
What are signs that someone are experiencing negative cash flow, even if they may be earning pretty decently?
I think a very classic sign is that you leave reach for the first week after getting your salary and not so for the next 3 weeks. You started to feel the pinch every time when you swipe your card or when you spend from your account.
That's quite true, right? So you're like YOLO after you get a salary, and then after that you start to rationalize a little bit towards the end of the month. Personally, I think that if you have to dip into your credit cards to get you through the month, I think that's one of the signs that you're experiencing negative cash flow. Notwithstanding that using credit cards as your day-to-day. I mean, assuming you're paying off your credit card full in month.
Yeah,
right?
I think even with credit card, when you're spending using your credit card, it has to be something that you can afford. Not spending in advance, not knowing whether you have the money to pay off.
Let's say you have budgeted 300 ringgit for groceries this month. That's absolutely fine to use a credit card, right? And because you're going to pay it off by end of the month. But if you're spending 300 ringgit on groceries on a credit card, but you can't afford to pay it off at the end of the month, I think that's a clear sign that you're facing a negative cash flow issue. Now that we've understand cash flow is really equivalent of your income coming in plus cash going out towards your expenses and daily necessities, right? How can one person go around building a realistic budget?
I think to build a realistic budget, you can start with a very simple template like the 50, 30, 20 rules, whereby you actually have like 50% of the money that you have from your allowance or your salary into the fixed cost, 30% probably to your variable cost, or you can adjust the ratio. And finally, the 10% that you have to really save for your emergency fund. This is actually not a strict law. It is just something that you can use as a starting template. And then you slowly adjust according to your lifestyle. This is actually very personal, depending on how your lifestyle is. And then how do you actually spend your money? Just for example, someone working in the Klang Valley or someone working in Malacca or even a smaller town, you will have different spending habits. And actually the way we spend also, it can be very different. So to have a realistic budget, do not just think that it is a one-size-fits-all kind of method that everybody can just adopt.
It all boils down to what actually is your goal? What does your lifestyle look like? So we may say that 50% goes towards our fixed expenses, right? Like a mortgage, a car. Some people just don't have mortgage, right? Some people it's okay traveling by LRT but like to go out, so those take up a larger portion of the budget. It's really personal and really depends on what your financial objectives and goals are, right? Having a budget means that we stick to it, right? But do you think that we can update our budget, and how often do you think it should be?
There are many occasions that our lifestyle may change or we may have to adjust our budget. For example, when you have a promotion whereby you get more pay, that's where you will have to remind yourself to not level up your spending along with your salary increase. Budgeting would have to come in place. You will have to really look into your budget again and see if you really want to put in more for your variable costs. Fixed costs are those things that wouldn't change, like your mortgage. Bills, those are the fixed costs. So fixed costs wouldn't change. You can't do anything about it unless if you want to change, for example, your insurance plans or maybe your mortgage. But variable cost is something that you truly control. So if you like to cut back on your expenses, variable cost is where you can actually work on.
When there are big life changes, moments, right? I think it makes sense for us to.
And also when someone changed from a fixed pay job to a freelance job, that's also where your budgeting would have to change as well. For example, you may not be getting a fixed amount anymore end of the month. So that's where your budgeting will have to change. And for this one, I would recommend that you adjust your budget according to the lowest earning that you foresee you will make in a month. Plan according to that. And of course, when you have a great month, that's where you will have extra savings.
At the end of the day, budgeting helps us stay disciplined, because if you don't have a budget and if your budget keeps changing, it really disrupts your consistency in terms of sticking to it. So I think the general advice is stick to your budget, and consistency is key. How can people make their budget feel like less of a punishment or deprivation? So they are like, oh, come on, my life sucks. I got to live within this box.
I think first thing first, we have to see ourselves predictable. What I mean is that all the so-called unexpected expenses that doesn't fit into your budget, actually those are predictable because you know your lifestyle. So to make it less feel like a punishment, you have to be able to predict yourself how you would actually be spending on bubble tea, for example. Then maybe you should have a budget for that. So then you don't feel like being punished because it just doesn't fit into your budget and you cannot afford it. Secondly, maybe you can make your budgeting activities more fun by giving yourself some fun goal, like creating a budget for your vacations. Allow yourself to splurge on things that will make you happy, because if it is all work and no play, you are setting yourself up to fail.
Then it comes back again to, you can't have it all unless you earn a lot of money. So if you like to dine out, for example, maybe you need to cut back on certain other items, on impulse purchases and all those. It's all about knowing what is your financial priorities and goals, and then what are you willing to give up and what you're not willing to give up. And then setting more budget aside to the ones that matters most to you.
Or to add on to that, budget is not about the list of things that you cannot own or you cannot buy. It's more on setting yourself up to the freedom of being able to afford the things that you really want.
So it's a mindset shift.
Yes.
Okay, that's a great tip. So Louise, what are GX Bank savings pockets and how do they work?
With GX Savings Pocket, you can create up to 10 different pockets for your specific goals. It works like a virtual folder. With the pockets open, you can put your money in it and then give it a name. So it can be for your new phone, it can be for anything. Set up your scheduled transfer and start savings for the specific goals.
It helps to automate savings without your input. It's a set and forget.
Yes, you can say so. And of course, it also comes with a 2% per annum interest that will actually credit to your pockets every day. So it is the same interest that you get to enjoy like your main account.
So you won't be able to spend your money in your savings pocket.
Oh no, actually you don't. And it's not supposed to, because for you to control your spending, it's better that you give your money a purpose in the separate pocket. And then when you want to spend, you will know clearly that that swipe or the QR scan is meant for what purposes. Like maybe you should take the money from your grocery pocket or your emergency fund pocket.
It's tucking it away, out of sight, out of mind.
But then one thing I would like to mention is about the flexibility of pocket. Tucking away the money doesn't mean that you're locking the money like an FD. You can still spend the money by just logging into your GX app and move the money from your pockets to your main account for spending.
And because you earn the daily interest, you don't lose anything.
You don't. And in fact, you see your money grow every day.
Can you walk us through how someone might use different pockets for different goals? For example, whether it's bills, whether it's for emergencies.
Okay, maybe you can just think of it this way. When you get a monthly salary or your allowances, have 3 pockets created. One for the monthly bills, one for your vacations or whatever goal it is, and lastly is for your emergency fund. You can call it like a oh no fund, something like that. So then when you get a salary, put the amount into each of the buckets and spend only when it is meant for this purpose. For example, if you're buying a flight ticket, since you are already saving up, right? Even though you are not reaching your goal yet, but when you are spending something that relating to the vacation, you can always take money from this. So it doesn't feel like you are having some unexpected expenses because it is already planned, right? Same thing for your monthly bills. When the bills come and you're supposed to pay for that bill, like your Inda water bill or whatever it is, take the money from this bucket. So this way, you know that you have already budgeted the expenses and you are afford to pay for that as well.
I think that's really important, right? Getting your money, let's say receiving a salary and then moving it to the pockets based on your budget so that you don't accidentally spend what you had in your account.
Yes.
And you know that when the bills come due at the end of the month, you already have it tucked away.
And then, yeah, just do my tracking of my expenses effortlessly. You can just log into your GX app and then look at the pocket and see where did your money goes. At least you know why is your money getting depleted so fast. You will know by just looking at the transaction history.
I think that's good. So what makes GX Bank Savings Pockets different from traditional accounts or goal-setting tools from other banks?
The biggest game changer to me is the interest rate and the flexibility. We are paying 2% per annum interest daily to your account. So you just imagine seeing interest coming in every day, not only to your main account but also to your savings pocket. And another one is the flexibility. Getting to enjoy the high interest rate doesn't mean that you have to commit to a certain tenure like an FD. No, with that 2%, we are still paying you even though you are moving your money in and out from the savings pocket. So it's flexible like that.
And I think most of the other banks, when it comes to savings account, the rates is typically,
I mean, the industry practice per savings account is always very lower
so
than
if you want to enjoy higher interest rates with other banks, you need to lock it in with FD. Whereas with savings pockets, you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
To enjoy higher rate, you need to lock into FD. And of course, to also be able to separate your fund or your budget for different goals, you may need more than one account. But with GX account, you can just open the pockets in less than 3 seconds or 5 seconds and then give it a go, put aside the money that is meant for this purpose and save away.
So that's how we design savings pockets to be used. But have you seen very creative or unexpected ways that our customers are using pockets?
Yes, I do. Actually, I've seen one very clever hack that a customer use our savings pocket for. When you spend with a credit card, usually you will spend the amount that you afford to pay off when the bills come. So what the customer did is whenever he swiped the credit card for a certain expenses, he will put aside the exact amount in this pocket called credit card payment. So whenever he do that, he will just set aside the money in the pocket. Right before the bills are due, he will take the money out from this pocket and pay off the credit card bill. So this way, they earn the interest before the credit card bill is due.
That's actually pretty clever and one way to stay on top of your cash flow game. How about feedback? Have you gotten any feedback from people or customers when it comes to using a savings pocket?
Everyone's buzzing about our daily interest because they really see the money growing every day. Even if it is 1 cent, it's still the money is growing for your savings goal. And secondly, people also rave a lot about our pocket features. It helps them to track the expenses and to know where every ringgit goes, because you know you will be able to do your budgeting more effectively by actually knowing how you spend and how you can save towards a goal.
What's the one small step that you want to give your advice to the audience?
I think you should just start by creating a pocket and then give it a goal and put in a small amount like a 5 or 10 ringgit to start. You will see how it takes you in a month time.
I think the beautiful thing is that while the tool is there to help you be a bit more disciplined when it comes to tucking your money aside for different use cases, there's still flexibility for you to withdraw when you need it, whether it is for emergencies or if your lifestyle changes, right? So it's still flexible enough for you to react when you need to. That's why we can wholeheartedly recommend every GXBank customers to open a savings pocket.